and welcome to our project. In this video, you'll be learning everything you need to know about passive transport.
To be more specific, you'll learn the following things.
Okay, so passive transport is the movement of ions and other molecular substances across the cell membrane without any need of energy.
Please note that this is not the only type of cell transport.
Oh yeah, there's also active transport, which is basically the opposite.
Well, cells have a plasma membrane that acts like a fence, and this plasma membrane is what regulates what moves into and out of a cell. The membrane is comprised mainly of phospholipid molecules and has protein molecules scattered throughout its structure. The phospholipid molecules have a polar hydrophilic water-loving head and two nonpolar hydrophobic water-fearing tails. The membrane is formed as the heads face out and the tails face in, forming a bilayer, as you can see here. The inner part of the cell, called the cytosol, is here, and the outside of the cell is surrounded by a fluid called interstitial fluid. Substances move into and out of a cell through several different processes called membrane transport. There are two main processes: passive transport processes and active transport processes. The main difference between the two is that passive processes do not require energy expenditure, and active processes do require the cells to expend energy. Let's start by looking at the passive processes.
So now that you know two types of cell transport, which are passive and active, you should know that passive transport is divided into two types, which are
Osmosis and diffusion.
There are two types of passive transport. You have diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion is the movement of particles from a higher level of sensation to a lower level of sensation. Osmosis is the movement of solvent particles across a semi-permeable membrane from a dilute solution to a concentrated solution.
Simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, and osmosis. Diffusion is the movement of a substance from where it has a high concentration to where it has a low concentration, or the tendency of a substance to spread out evenly over a given space. For instance, when a sugar cube is dissolved in water. Over time, the cube will dissolve and eventually spread out evenly in the water until it reaches equilibrium. Diffusion occurs down a concentration gradient, which is a difference in concentration of a substance between two areas. So the sugar molecules will move from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. Cellular diffusion is when diffusion of a solute, which is a dissolved substance. Osmosis is the passive movement of water through a selectively permeable membrane. This occurs when there's a difference in concentration of water on either side of the membrane. This can happen in one of two ways. Water can slip between the phospholipid molecules that make up the plasma membrane, or through integral protein water channels that are called aquaporins. The plasma membrane is not permeable to most solutes, such as charged, polar, and large substances. So for example, one side of the membrane, the cytosol or interstitial fluid, can have more solutes than the other side. Let's say the interstitial fluid.
Passive transport is important for cells because it controls what enters and exits the cell. The transport of materials is controlled by the permeable cell membrane. This means that it will allow spontaneous passage of some materials, but others must use processes to get across.
So now we're going to show you examples of diffusion and osmosis. And yellow.
So to get started, I'm just going to go ahead and fill up the bowl with water. And then I'm simply going to drop my gummy bear inside the water.
Okay, so that was the project about passive transport. Hope you liked this very much and you learned a lot. Goodbye!
Hi and welcome to. Annoying my parents. Okay, so a passive transport is the movement of ions and other. Okay, so the two types of passive transport.
De verdad, Mayala.
Dude!
Loca, vamos rápido.
Okay, so the two types of passive transport are diffusion and osmosis. Diffusion is the movement of particles.